The suitcase zipper stuck on the corner of my blue sweater at exactly 7:06 in the morning, and for one absurd second I thought that was how fate planned to defeat me. Not with poison in a glass, not with forged documents, not with another public humiliation beneath the results board while cameras flashed and my classmates pretended they had not spent all year borrowing my notes. A zipper. A dull little metal tooth biting into wool, while the dormitory hallway outside my room buzzed with girls rehearsing their victory faces for the academy results ceremony. I stood there barefoot on the carpet, one knee pressed against the suitcase lid, listening to the noise of my second life beginning in the least dramatic way possible. Someone down the hall shrieked that the leaderboard would open by noon. Someone else laughed about how the top 10 would be invited straight into the Meridian Scholar interview round. A door slammed. Perfume drifted beneath my door in a sugary cloud. And on my desk, beside a half-empty mug of tea gone cold, my phone lit up with a message from the girl who had destroyed me once already. Don't be nervous, Leora. Whatever happens today, we're sisters in spirit. I almost smiled. In my first life, that message had made me cry because I thought Sarah Wickham, the golden girl of Halewick Academy, was comforting me. In this life, I knew better. It was not comfort. It was a signature on a crime she had not yet committed. I pulled the sweater free, folded it once, and placed it on top of my notebooks, as if I were packing for an ordinary break instead of leaving campus before the most important results announcement of our lives. The old me would never have done that. The old me had believed that staying proved strength, that standing in front of the results board with my chin high would show everyone I had earned my place. I had stayed while the academy streamed the leaderboard live to parents, donors, and scholarship officers. I had stayed while my name appeared in first place for 14 glorious seconds. 14 seconds was how long my life had been mine. Then the board flickered.
My score changed.
First became 37th. 37th became under review. Under review became irregularity detected. And before I understood what was happening, Sarah Wickham was crying into the headmaster's shoulder, saying she had tried to warn them that I was unstable, that I had boasted about adjusting my marks, that I had begged her to help hide a discrepancy in the system. She had looked devastated. Everyone believed devastated girls with perfect curls and perfect grades. They did not believe girls like me, scholarship girls with tired shoes and no family name worth protecting. By sunset, my score had been struck. By Monday, my admission offer had been suspended. By the end of that year, Sarah wore the gold medal that had once been mine, and I wore the silence everyone forced over my mouth like a gag. So when life opened its fist and dropped me back into the morning before results, I did not run to the registrar. I did not confront Sarah in the hallway. I did not scream that I knew what she had done, because knowledge without proof was just grief with sharper teeth. I packed. Quietly. Methodically. I took the printed scholarship invitation from my drawer, slid it into a folder, and left behind every item she expected me to use as a prop in her story. The lucky pen she had given me, the white cardigan she had once insisted made me look less severe, the little gold hair clip she wanted me to wear so the live stream would show us matching. Then I opened my laptop and did the one thing that made my hands tremble. I logged into the Academy portal, checked my candidate profile, and clicked the button beside temporary withdrawal from campus residence. Reason for early departure, the form asked. I typed, family emergency. Then I uploaded the train ticket I had bought 10 minutes earlier, a receipt from the station kiosk, and a scan of my request to receive results remotely. At the bottom, where students usually typed apologies, I wrote one sentence. I will not be physically present on campus during the publication, viewing, appeal, or verification period today.
It was dry.
Almost boring.
Perfect.
Revenge, I had learned, did not always need fire. Sometimes it needed a timestamp. The knock came just as I locked my suitcase. 3 gentle taps, soft enough to sound polite, timed exactly the way Sarah always timed her entrances, as if the world were a stagehand waiting for her cue. Leora, she called through the door. Are you ready? Everyone's meeting in the courtyard at 8. We're taking pictures before results. Her voice was warm honey poured over glass. In my first life, I had opened the door immediately. I had let her straighten my collar, dab concealer beneath my eyes, and whisper that no matter what the numbers said, she was proud of me. Then she had guided me toward the cameras like a lamb toward a decorated knife. This time, I let the silence stretch. I watched her shadow shift beneath the door. She knocked again. "Leora? Are you crying?" There it was, the hook hidden in kindness. If I opened the door with red eyes, she could tell people I was spiraling. If I refused to open, she could tell them I was hiding. If I answered too calmly, she would know something had changed. I lifted the suitcase off my bed, rolled it to the doorway, and opened the door with my coat already on. Sarah stood outside in a cream blouse, navy skirt, pearl earrings, and the expression of a saint painted by someone who had never met a saint. Behind her, two girls from our cohort pretended not to listen while leaning so hard into the hallway that one of them nearly dropped her phone. "I'm going home," I said. The words landed between us like a glass breaking. Sarah blinked once, too slow. "Home," she repeated, her smile tightening. "Today? But results are today." "Yes," I said. "That's why I'm going." The two girls behind her exchanged looks. Sarah's eyes dropped to my suitcase, then to my coat, then to the folder under my arm. She recovered quickly because girls like Sarah always recovered quickly unless an audience rewarded collapse. "Leora, don't do this. I know you're scared, but leaving before results will make people talk. People talk whether I stay or leave." I bent to lift my bag over the threshold. Sarah stepped slightly into the doorway, not enough to block me, just enough to make refusal look rude. "At least wait until noon. We can stand together. I promised your aunt I'd look after you." My aunt had promised Sarah many things too. My spare login when I was sick, my draft essays when Sarah needed inspiration, my trust when I had no one else on campus. I smiled at her, small and harmless. "You've looked after me enough." For half a second, the golden girl vanished. In her place stood the thing underneath: calculation, irritation, hunger. Then her eyes softened again. "You'll regret leaving," she whispered. It sounded almost tender. "Maybe," I said, "but I'll regret staying more." The hallway followed me like a courtroom as I rolled my suitcase toward the lift. Doors opened. Faces appeared. Someone asked why I was running away. Someone else muttered that only guilty people avoided results day. I did not answer. That was important. In my first life, I had answered everything, defended everything, explained until my throat ached, and every explanation had become another thread Sarah used to sow guilt onto me. This time, I let them make noise while the cameras above the dormitory entrance recorded me leaving at 7:24 a.m. The guard at the front desk, Mr. Ives, looked up from his crossword and frowned. "Early departure?" he asked. I placed the printed approval form in front of him. He scanned the barcode, checked my face against my student ID, and stamped the exit log. The stamp sounded final, heavy, like a judge's gavel pretending to be rubber. "You know results go live today," he said. "I know. Need me to mark remote access only?" "Please." He clicked a box on his screen. Remote access only. Off-campus verification required. In my first life, I had not known that box existed. Students who left campus before results had to confirm identity through an external verification link before opening any score report. Any change made from an internal campus terminal under their ID after departure triggered a mismatch audit. A dry rule hidden in a resident's handbook nobody read. Nobody except the version of me who had spent years after my downfall reading every policy that had failed to protect me. Outside, the morning was bright and cruel. The academy courtyard was already dressed for celebration, with white tents, gold banners, and a ridiculous flower arch shaped like the academy crest. Parents gathered by the fountain holding bouquets and cameras. Teachers stood in clusters, pretending they did not already know which families had donated enough to make bad news gentler. A stage had been set near the results board, and above it hung a black screen waiting to turn lives into numbers. I paused at the edge of the courtyard, not because I wanted to stay, but because I needed Sarah to see me leave. She appeared on the dormitory steps with her friends gathered around her, one hand pressed to her chest as if I had wounded her by refusing to be present for my own execution. Our eyes met across the courtyard. She lifted her phone and typed. Mine buzzed a second later. Please come back. If something is wrong with your score later, people will blame you for disappearing. I looked at the message, then at the security camera fixed above the west gate. Slowly, carefully, I raised my phone, took a screenshot, and saved it to the cloud folder I had named Receipts, not because I was dramatic, but because simple labels were easiest to explain during hearings. Then I walked out through the gate, while Sarah watched me go with a smile that did not reach her eyes. The train station smelled of wet concrete, burnt coffee, and the metallic breath of rails warming in the sun. I bought a paper ticket even though I already had the digital one because paper could be held up in front of a committee and digital evidence always made old administrators squint. The clerk stamped it with the time. 7:43 a.m. I took a photo of the platform clock beside my suitcase, another of the departure board, another of the receipt for tea I did not drink. Then I sat on a bench and waited for fear to arrive. It did, but late. Fear came while the train pulled out and the academy towers shrank behind a line of winter trees. For one wild moment, I wanted to get off at the next stop and run back. What if the rule had changed? What if Sarah had found another way? What if leaving made me look guilty again? My hands tightened around my folder until the edges bent. Then the train passed the old cemetery where, in my first life, I had stood in the rain after my mother's funeral and promised I would become someone no one could erase. I had broken that promise once by trusting a girl whose kindness had always had conditions. I would not break it twice by mistaking fear for warning. At 9:18 a.m., my aunt called. I let it ring until it stopped, then sent a message saying I was on the train and would call when I reached home. She called again immediately. I answered because avoiding her would create its own story. Leora, she hissed before I could speak. What have you done? The train rattled over a bridge, slicing her anger into metallic pieces. Good morning to you too. Sarah is worried sick. The whole school is asking why you ran away before results. Do you understand how bad this looks? I submitted my departure form properly. This is not about forms. This is about reputation. Sarah says you seemed unstable.
Of course she did.
In my first life, unstable had been the word they used to turn my panic into evidence. Did Sarah also say she came to my room before I left? I asked. My aunt paused. She cares about you. Did she say it? Do not twist this. There it was again, the family talent for treating my questions like crimes. I looked out the window at fields flashing by in strips of green and gold. Aunt Mara, I am going home. My results will be released remotely. I am not authorizing anyone to open, print, appeal, adjust, review, or speak for my score on campus. Do not be ridiculous. Nobody is touching your score. I almost laughed, but laughter would have sounded like madness in a recording, and I had started recording the call the moment she said Sarah's name. Good, I said. Then no one will mind that I put that in writing. By 10:30, the cohort chat had turned into theater. Messages poured in faster than I could read them. Sarah says Leora is overwhelmed. Sarah says maybe we should not mention ranks around her. Did she know something? Maybe her score got flagged early. Someone posted a photo of the courtyard stage. Someone else posted a selfie with Sarah in the center, her eyes shining with concern, one hand gripping the phone I knew contained more than comfort. I watched from the train as they built the first half of her story for free. The golden girl did not need to accuse me directly. She never had. She only dropped little candles along a path and let everyone else call it daylight. Then, at 10:47, a private message arrived from Sarah.
Yora, I'm sorry.
The verification team just asked whether you gave anyone permission to check your report if you couldn't handle opening it. I told them no, of course. My thumb hovered over the screen. In my first life, I would have answered too quickly. What verification team? Why are they asking you? Don't let anyone touch my results. Every panicked line would have helped her. Instead, I typed, "Thank you for saying no." Then I screenshotted her message too. The best traps were made from letting liars explain themselves. I reached home at 11:12. Home was not warm. It was a narrow apartment above a closed tailor shop, with dust on the windowsill and a kitchen tap that coughed before it ran clear. My aunt had kept the campus dorm because donors liked sad scholarship stories better when the sad girl lived where they could see her. The apartment belonged to my late mother, and in my first life I had avoided it because grief lived in every cupboard. In this life, grief was quieter than campus applause. I opened the door, dragged my suitcase inside, and placed my phone on the table beneath the old wall clock. Then I called the academy results office through the public line, not the student line. "This is Leora Vale, candidate H214, I said when a woman answered. "I am off campus under remote access only. I want to confirm that no internal terminal access is authorized for my score." The woman sounded bored until she pulled up my file. "Yes, I see your departure log. Remote only flag active at 7:26. Results release at noon. You'll receive an external identity verification link. If anyone attempts access from campus, it triggers a hold. And if someone prints or opens my report using a stored login," her keyboard clicked. "That would trigger a conflict alert. Can you note that I called?" "I can note student confirmed no campus representative." "Please do." The call lasted 2 minutes and 16 seconds. I saved the recording beside the others. At 11:57, the Academy live stream began. I watched it from my mother's kitchen table with a bowl of untouched rice, a glass of water, and my laptop plugged into the wall because fate, in my experience, enjoyed attacking batteries at symbolic moments. The stage looked brighter through the screen than it had in memory. The headmaster stood beneath the gold banners, smiling like a man who had never had to wonder whether justice could afford shoes. Behind him, the results board glowed black and expectant. Sarah sat in the front row between the dean and the sponsor's daughter, her cream blouse luminous under the lights. She looked flawless. She looked doomed. When the headmaster began speaking about excellence, integrity, and the sacred trust between students and institution, I had to cover my mouth with my hand. Not because I was amused, exactly. Because in my first life, those words had crushed me. In this one, they sounded like a drumroll for someone else's fall. Noon arrived. My laptop chimed with the external verification link. On the live stream, the headmaster lifted his hand toward the screen. "Congratulations to all candidates," he said. "The preliminary merit list will now display." The board flashed white. Names appeared. Ranks rolled down the screen. And there I was. Leora Vale, rank 1, score 98.74. For 4 seconds, my kitchen became impossible. My mother's old clock ticked. A car passed below the window. On screen, the courtyard erupted. Someone shouted my name. The camera swung toward the empty place where I should have been standing, then toward Sarah, who rose slowly, clapping with both hands pressed together as if prayer had become applause. Her smile was perfect, and for the first time all morning, I saw panic behind it. Because my name had appeared too early. Because the system had not yet been touched. Because the first truth had made itself public before she could replace it. Then the board flickered. I stopped breathing. My name vanished, then reappeared lower. Rank 1 became rank 11. Score 98.74 became 89.14. A red note appeared beside it. Amended after candidate review. The courtyard noise changed shape. Confusion rippled through the live stream, a physical thing passing from face to face. The headmaster lowered his microphone. A teacher hurried toward the side console. Sarah put one hand over her mouth. It was exactly the gesture from my first life, delicate horror, rehearsed innocence. Only this time I was not beneath the board, with my knees turning weak. This time I was in my mother's kitchen, off campus, remote flagged, screen recording active. My external verification link still sat unopened in another tab. That was the part Sarah did not know. I had not verified. I had not opened my report. I had not reviewed, appealed, amended, or even clicked. Yet on the public board, a candidate review had supposedly occurred under my name from an internal terminal at Halewick Academy.
My phone rang.
Unknown number. I answered and put it on speaker. "Miss Vale?" The voice belonged to Deputy Registrar Ellen, crisp and frightened. "This is the results office. Are you currently on campus?" "No. Have you opened your score report?" No. Have you authorized any person to access or amend your result? No. A silence followed, full of people breathing away from the receiver. Miss Vale, please do not access your result portal until instructed. Has someone accessed it already? We are investigating a conflict alert. From an internal terminal? Another silence. Please remain available. The call ended. On the live stream, the headmaster had asked everyone to remain calm while a display issue was corrected. A display issue. In my first life, my collapse had been a character flaw, my protest a disciplinary concern, my destroyed future an unfortunate consequence of procedure. But Sarah's crime? A display issue, until it became too large for polite language to cover. The cohort chat exploded. Leora changed her score? Wait, how if she left? Sarah said she was unstable. Maybe she logged in from somewhere. No. It says candidate review. Can you review before opening results? My fingers stayed still. I did not defend myself. I had spent my first life learning that the innocent are tempted to speak because silence feels like surrender, while the guilty understand silence as strategy. This time, I borrowed from the guilty and waited. Sarah messaged me privately at 12:08. Leora, what did you do? They're asking questions. I stared at the sentence until the words blurred. What did you do? Not are you okay? Not someone changed your score. She had already placed herself near the investigation by admitting there were questions. I typed, I am at home. I have not opened anything. Then I added, I hope whoever touched it is caught. The message showed read almost instantly. No reply. At 12:19, the live stream cut out. The Academy replaced it with a crest and the words technical pause. In my first life, that pause had been when they dragged me into the side office and demanded I explain why my score adjustment request contained my login credentials, my student number, and my digital signature. I had sobbed that I had not submitted anything. They had asked why I was present beside the terminal minutes before the change. Sarah had stood in the corner, crying harder than I was, whispering that she wished she had stopped me. This time, I imagined a different room. I imagined administrators checking the resident's exit log, the remote-only flag, the train timestamp, the results office call note, the unopened external verification link. I imagined them realizing that the student supposedly adjusting her score from inside the academy had been photographed at a station 70 kilometers away. And I imagined Sarah, somewhere near the stage, still wearing her pearls, discovering that a lie built perfectly for one life did not fit inside the next. My aunt arrived at 12:34, pounding on the apartment door hard enough to rattle the chain. I opened it with my phone recording in my cardigan pocket. She swept in like a storm dressed for a luncheon, cheeks flushed, hair pinned too tightly. Tell me you did not do this, she said.
Come in, Aunt Mara.
Thank you for knocking like police. This is not a joke. The academy called me. Your result has been frozen. I know. Sarah is beside herself. That must be difficult for her. My aunt stared at me, as if I had slapped her. Do you understand what you sound like? That girl has defended you all morning while you ran away. Defended me from what? From your own behavior. The apartment seemed to shrink around us. Same wallpaper. Same cracked kitchen tile. Same aunt who had taken me in after my mother died and made sure I paid for shelter with obedience. In my first life, I had begged her to believe me. She had told me belief was expensive, and I had already cost her enough. This time, I walked to the table, picked up the folder, and removed copies of my exit log, train ticket, call note, and remote access confirmation. I laid them between us one by one. I left before results. I requested remote access only. I called the office before release. I have not opened the link. Whoever changed my score did it from campus. Aunt Mara looked at the papers, as if they were insects. Documents can be misunderstood. Yes, I said. That is why I collected several. Why would anyone change your score? That is an excellent question. Do not imply Sarah. I didn't say her name. Her mouth snapped shut. Outside, a siren passed far away, rising and fading. My aunt's eyes moved to my phone on the table, then to the laptop screen where the paused live stream still showed the academy crest. She lowered her voice. Listen to me. Whatever is happening, you must not make accusations. Families like ours survive by being careful. Families like ours. She always said that when she meant people like Sarah could survive scandal, and people like me could not. I am being careful, I said. That is why I came home. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her face. She had expected tears, panic, gratitude for guidance. She had not expected me to become a locked door. At 1:02, the academy summoned me to a verification call. Not a meeting. Not a disciplinary hearing. A verification call. Words mattered. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop camera on while Deputy Registrar Ellen, the headmaster, the IT compliance officer, and a woman I recognized from the Scholarship Foundation appeared in small squares. My aunt hovered out of frame until I asked her, politely, to sit where the camera could see her if she intended to remain. She refused and stepped into the hallway. The deputy registrar began with formalities. Miss Vale, we are confirming your location and access history during today's results publication. Understood. Please show your current surroundings. I turned the laptop slowly.
Kitchen.
Window.
Clock.
Suitcase by the wall. Please confirm whether you accessed your result through the external link sent at noon. I did not. Our logs show no external access. The IT officer leaned closer. They do show an internal session under your credentials from Terminal C4 in the candidate support room at 12:03 p.m. That session submitted a candidate review request and amended the public display value pending verification. The headmaster closed his eyes, as if hearing it aloud caused him physical pain. The scholarship woman wrote something down. Miss Vale, the deputy registrar said, did you share your credentials with anyone? In my first life, that question had destroyed me because the honest answer was complicated. Sarah had watched me type my password dozens of times. My aunt had once asked me to give Sarah access to a shared folder. The dorm computer had remembered my login. This time, I had changed every password at 6:42 a.m. and enabled phone verification. I held up my phone.
No.
And my account required a verification code after 6:42 this morning. The IT officer's expression sharpened. You enabled two-factor today? Yes. The internal session bypassed two-factor through a cached administrative token. The words meant nothing to my aunt, but they meant everything to the people on the call. Administrative token. Not student panic. Not emotional instability. Someone with proximity to staff tools had used a cached login in a support room to impersonate me. Who had access to Terminal C4? I asked. Nobody answered immediately. The deputy registrar looked down. The headmaster said, we are reviewing camera footage. The scholarship woman finally spoke. Miss Vale, remain available. Do not discuss details publicly. May I ask whether my original score is preserved? The IT officer nodded before the headmaster could stop him.
Yes.
The raw scoring database was not altered. Only the display and candidate review layer. Translation: Sarah had not changed my real result. She had changed what everyone saw. In my first life, that had been enough to bury me because the academy preferred clean appearances over messy truth. In this life, the raw score weighted beneath the lie like a stone under silk. At 1:41, Sarah called. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, then answered without speaking. For several seconds there was only breathing and distant hallway noise. Leora, she whispered. Please tell them you asked me to help. I looked at the laptop, where the verification call had ended, but the recording had saved. I looked at my mother's chipped mug beside the sink. Help with what? Don't do that. Her voice cracked, but not with sorrow. With anger trying to disguise itself as fear. You know how this looks. They think I touched something because I was in the support room. Were you? Everyone was in and out. The network was overloaded. Ms. Greaves told me to help candidates who were crying. You left, Leora. You left me to handle everything. There it was, the pivot. She had not stolen. She had served. She had not impersonated. She had helped. Did you change my displayed score? I asked. A laugh burst out of her. Too sharp. Why would I lower your score?
Think.
If I wanted to hurt you, wouldn't I make it look worse? In my experience, you prefer believable damage. Silence. When she spoke again, the honey was gone. You set me up. I smiled then, not because I was happy, but because the truth had finally entered the room wearing her voice.
No sera.
I went home. She hung up. I saved the call recording, labeled it 141 Sarah admission implication, then sat very still while my body shook. This was the part no revenge story prepared you for, the shaking after the first clean cut. People imagine justice as a warm force, but sometimes it is cold enough to make your teeth hurt. I did not feel triumphant.
Not yet.
I felt 17 again, and much older than 17, a girl in her dead mother's kitchen holding evidence against someone everyone loved. The cohort chat had gone silent, which meant the academy had started confiscating phones or warning students not to speak. My aunt stood in the hallway, pretending she had not listened. When she finally entered, she looked smaller. What did Sarah say? She asked me to lie. My aunt flinched. Those are serious words. So is fraud. You should be careful. I am. She sat across from me, hands folded tightly. Leora, if this becomes public, it will hurt many people. It already hurt me once. She did not understand the once, of course. She thought I meant this morning. Maybe that was kinder. At 2:26, the live stream returned. The academy courtyard looked different now. Less festival, more accident scene. Parents stood in uneasy clusters. Students whispered with their hands over their mouths. The headmaster walked onto the stage, carrying no smile at all. Beside him stood Deputy Registrar Ellen, the IT compliance officer, and 2 security staff near the side steps. Sarah was not in the front row anymore. The empty chair where she had sat looked brighter than the chairs around it. My aunt came to stand behind me despite herself. The headmaster tapped the microphone. Candidates and families, thank you for your patience. During publication of the preliminary merit list, an unauthorized internal access event was detected affecting one candidate's displayed score. A sound moved through the crowd. Not a gasp, not yet. More like a held breath breaking unevenly. The raw scoring database remained secure. The affected display has been corrected. The preliminary list will now be republished. Further disciplinary action is underway. He stepped aside. The board flashed. My name returned to first place.
Leora Vale, 98.74. No amendment.
No review. No red note. Just the truth, plain enough to look almost fragile. For a moment, nobody clapped. That was the strangest part. Victory arrived and found the room too embarrassed to welcome it. Then one person applauded from somewhere near the back, slow and uncertain. Another joined. Then a teacher. Then a parent. The sound grew, not joyful exactly, but compelled, like people clapping not because they loved me, but because refusing would reveal too much. I watched the screen without moving. In my first life, applause had turned against me in seconds. In this one, I did not trust it. The headmaster continued. Additionally, candidate Sarah Whitcomb's preliminary score has been placed under immediate review pending investigation into unauthorized system access, candidate impersonation, and breach of results integrity policy. Now the crowd gasped. My aunt grabbed the back of my chair. On screen, the camera jerked toward the side of the stage just in time to catch Sarah being led from the candidate support room by a female security officer and Deputy Registrar Ellen.
No cuffs.
This was not that kind of story. Worse, for Sarah, it was quieter. Her face was pale beneath perfect makeup. Her pearl earring swung as she turned toward the crowd, searching for someone to cry at, someone to save her by becoming the villain she needed. Her eyes found the camera. For one bright second, through a screen and 70 kilometers, she looked directly at me. I expected satisfaction. Instead, memory opened under my feet. I saw her in my first life standing beside me during the disciplinary hearing, holding tissues she never used, telling them I had confessed privately. I saw the board striking my score, while she trembled beautifully. I saw my aunt refusing to meet my eyes. I saw myself packing my dorm weeks later with no ceremony, no apology, no proof. Then the present snapped back. Sarah's mouth shaped my name, but the microphone did not catch it. The officer guided her away. The crowd parted as if dishonesty were contagious. The headmaster announced that all final rankings would be provisional until completion of the review, but my raw score remained certified. The scholarship representative stepped forward next, voice clear and sharp. The Meridian Foundation will defer any award connected to candidate Wickham pending full disciplinary findings. Candidate Vale's interview invitation remains active. My aunt made a sound behind me, half sob, half disbelief. I did not turn around. Some apologies should have to walk a long hallway before reaching the person they harmed. The academy called again at 3:10 to take my statement. This time, the questions were not sharpened against me. They asked when I left campus, who approached my room, what messages I received, whether I had ever shared credentials, whether Sarah had reason to know my old password patterns, whether my aunt had ever passed documents between us. I answered cleanly. I uploaded screenshots, recordings, travel receipts, exit logs, and the call note from before noon. Evidence moved faster than emotion. By 4 o'clock, the IT office had confirmed that Terminal C4 had been accessed using a cash staff session from the candidate support room, where Sarah had volunteered that morning after telling everyone she was worried about me. She had opened my profile using my student number, submitted a review request, and changed the public display value just enough to knock me out of automatic award range while leaving the raw score untouched. It was clever in the way rotten floors are clever, strong enough to stand on until someone shines a light underneath. The system had captured her face on the support room camera, her student card tap at the door, and her own phone receiving a screenshot of the altered display minutes before the board flickered. She had not expected an audit because, in the first life, no audit had triggered. I had been on campus then. I had opened my report. I had panicked near the support room. I had looked guilty enough to save everyone else the trouble of checking. At 5:37, the official notice arrived by email. Candidate Sarah Wickham. Preliminary score struck pending disciplinary adjudication. Candidate barred from scholarship interview round and all merit-based provisional placements until conclusion of investigation. My name sat 2 lines below in a different section. Candidate Leora Vale, raw score certified, preliminary rank restored, no adverse finding. I read the words 3 times. No adverse finding. Such a small phrase for something that felt like being dug out of a grave. My aunt read over my shoulder, then stepped back. Leora, she said softly. I closed the laptop. Not now. I only wanted. Not now. She pressed her lips together. In my first life, I would have softened immediately, terrified of seeming cruel. This time, I allowed the silence to remain uncomfortable. People who benefited from your obedience often called your boundaries cruelty because they had no other language for losing access. Sarah's mother arrived at the apartment just after 6, which meant my aunt had told her where I was. I knew because Mrs. Wickham did not knock like a visitor. She knocked like a creditor. My aunt rushed to the door before I could stop her, and suddenly the kitchen filled with expensive perfume and panic wearing pearls. Mrs. Wickham looked like an older version of Sarah, the same golden hair, the same wet eyes weaponized by habit. Leora, she said, reaching for my hands. I folded them behind my back. Do not be like this. This is a misunderstanding. Sarah was trying to protect you. From my own first-place score? Her mouth tightened. She said you were distressed. She believed the display was wrong and tried to request support. By lowering my score through an internal terminal? Children make mistakes. Fraud is not a childhood stage. My aunt whispered my name in warning. I ignored her. Mrs. Wickham's softness cracked. You must consider what happens if this escalates. Sarah has opportunities. A future. Her family has stood beside this academy for years. There it was, finally, naked and ugly, the belief that some futures mattered more because more money had been spent decorating them. I had a future too, I said. Mrs. Wickham looked genuinely confused, as if the idea had not occurred to her. She tried bargaining next. They always did, when tears failed. A joint statement. A misunderstanding. A request for mercy. A private apology after the investigation closed. A donation in my mother's name. At that, my aunt inhaled sharply, and something in me went very still. Do not say my mother's name again, I said. Mrs. Wickham froze. I meant respect.
No.
You meant purchase. The kitchen clock ticked once, loud as a slap. Mrs. Wickham turned to my aunt. Mara, talk sense into her. My aunt looked between us, trapped by all the loyalties she had chosen before realizing one might demand payment. Leora, she said, weaker this time, perhaps a statement that you do not believe Sarah intended harm? I laughed. Not loudly. Just enough. You want me to lie about intent, because the evidence proved action. Mrs. Wickham's face hardened completely. You ungrateful little girl. There she was. Not a grieving mother. Not a family friend. A woman furious that the girl she considered disposable had refused disposal. I opened the apartment door. Leave. Nobody moved. Leave, I repeated, or I call the investigator and add witness intimidation to my statement. This time, Mrs. Wickham believed me. After she left, my aunt sat down as if her bones had loosened. I did not know, she said. The words floated across the kitchen, thin and late. I wanted to ask which part she had not known, that Sarah was cruel, that I was useful, that silence could become complicity if practiced long enough. Instead, I took the kettle to the sink and filled it because my hands needed something ordinary to do. You didn't want to know, I said. She flinched, but she did not deny it. The kettle began to heat, a low tremble building toward a whistle. In my first life, I almost said, you chose her. You told me to accept the finding. You said fighting would embarrass the family. You watched my life collapse and called it unfortunate. But rebirth is a lonely truth. You cannot hand someone the memory of a future they have not betrayed you in yet and expect them to carry the weight properly. So I said only, today, you chose her until choosing her became risky. My aunt covered her face. I let her cry. Her tears were not my emergency. By Friday, the investigation was no longer quiet. Halewick Academy tried to call it an internal disciplinary matter, but parents had recorded the live stream, students had saved the flickering leaderboard, and donors disliked scandals only slightly more than they disliked being lied to. Sarah's score was formally struck. Her merit placement was cancelled. The Meridian Foundation blacklisted her from current and future scholarship rounds connected to academic integrity certification. The Academy announced new result access protocols with the kind of solemn language institutions use when admitting fault without saying fault. Terminal C4 was removed from the candidate support room. Staff tokens were disabled before publication windows. Remote-only flags became automatic for off-campus candidates. My name appeared on the final merit list in first place, not glowing, not decorated, just printed in black beside the number I had earned. In my first life, I had dreamed of that list until dreaming hurt. In this life, I looked at it for a long time and felt something quieter than happiness. Recognition, perhaps. Or relief. Or the exhaustion of someone who finally stops pushing against a locked door because it opens. Sarah sent one final message from a new number the night before the scholarship interviews. You ruined me because you were jealous. I was sitting on the floor of my mother's bedroom, sorting through old boxes, when it arrived. For a moment, the room blurred into two lives at once. The life where I had begged her to tell the truth and the life where she begged me to bury it. I typed several replies in my head. You ruined yourself. You stole what you could not earn. You mistook kindness for weakness. All true. All unnecessary. Instead, I blocked the number and kept sorting. At the bottom of the box, beneath old photographs and medical bills, I found a note from my mother written in her slanted handwriting. Leora, if a room makes you smaller every time you enter it, leave before you forget your real size. I sat there with the paper in my lap, and for the first time since returning, I cried. Not for Sarah. Not for the Academy. Not even for the girl I had been in my first life, although she deserved tears. I cried because my mother had given me the answer years before fate forced me to use it. On interview morning, I packed again, but differently. No frantic suitcase, no escape disguised as family emergency, no folder full of proof held like armor. I wore a dark green dress my mother had bought secondhand and altered herself, carried my certified score report in a clean envelope, and took the train back toward Halewick with sunlight pouring through the carriage windows. At the academy gate, students turned to look. Some whispered. Some stepped aside. A few tried to smile, as if they had not enjoyed watching me fall before they knew I would stand again. I did not punish every coward with my attention. That was another lesson rebirth taught me. Not every person who fails you deserves a dramatic confrontation. Some deserve only the ordinary humiliation of becoming irrelevant. Mr. Ives at the front desk stamped my visitor pass and gave me a small nod. Deputy Registrar Ellen met me by the interview hall and said, "Congratulations, Miss Vale," with the careful respect of someone who had finally read the whole file. The scholarship panel asked me about leadership, resilience, academic ambition, and integrity. In my first life, those questions would have felt like traps. This time, they felt almost simple. When the foundation chair asked what I had learned from results week, the room went very still. They expected polish. A noble answer. Something about perseverance. I gave them the truth, shaped neatly enough to be useful. I learned that integrity is not proven by staying where people can watch you suffer, I said. Sometimes it is proven by removing yourself from a corrupted room and trusting the record to show who enters after you leave. The chair looked up from her notes. The academy representative swallowed. I continued, because for once nobody interrupted me. I also learned that systems do not protect people by accident. They protect people when rules are clear, logs are checked, and reputations are not allowed to outweigh evidence. No one clapped. Interviews are not ceremonies. But the silence afterward was clean. It did not accuse me. It listened. When I walked out, the results board in the courtyard had already been taken down. In its place stood a plain notice directing students to collect certified reports through secure portals. No flowers, no banners, no stage.
Good.
Let the academy learn modesty. Near the fountain, I saw Sarah's empty chair from the ceremony stacked with others beside the maintenance shed, its white ribbon crushed under the leg of another. I paused only long enough to recognize the symbol, and then let it go. Revenge had brought me back to the gate, but it would not be allowed to become the house I lived in. I had packed up and gone home before results because I needed proof. Now I walked back in because I had something better than proof. I had my name restored, my score certified, and a future no golden girl could edit from a campus terminal. As I left the courtyard, my phone buzzed with an email from the Meridian Foundation. "Congratulations, Miss Vale. We are pleased to offer you the scholarship." I read it once beneath the winter sun, then looked up at the academy windows where so many people had once watched me disappear. This time, I did not wave. I did not smile for them. I simply turned toward the station, held the phone against my chest, and went forward as myself.